Well, the Premier League is on a break. Mainly, I think the Premier League now does a break so that Crook can do TikToks for us. But the news keeps tumbling. Of course, next year, Scott, this is great, right? The international break next year in October. Get this, by the way, the international break in September and October last week is now just one break. So it's at the end of September and the beginning of October. So you get a greater lead-in time in the Premier League. So you get a few more weeks of Premier League action. And then you get one big 3-week international break where international teams will play 4 games. So like a huge break. So God knows what's going to happen there, but it's quite fascinating, actually. Imagine the number of TikToks we're going to get from the Saltmeister.
Imagine the number of holidays I can get in that 3-week break, and the number of rounds of golf.
Rounds of golf, yeah, I was going to say. It'd be absolutely outstanding. I don't know what talkSPORT's going to do for 3 weeks. It's going to be an absolute nightmare.
I'm sure I've just seen Crookie on his phone texting his sister-in-law saying, can I book out your villa for a month in Portugal?
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea, doesn't it? It was being reported that Ange Postecoglou was having crunch talks with Evangelos Marinakis over this international break. Crookmeister, we've had 3 days of it. What's happening?
Well, I think that came from Postecoglou himself in the press conference after the defeat in Newcastle, said that he would be meeting with Marinakis. All very quiet at the moment coming out of Forest, but it was during the last international break before they decided quite late on to part company with Nuno Espirito Santo. So never say never when it comes to Marinakis, but the sense I'm getting is that Postecoglou will be given a little bit more time to turn this around. One name to keep an eye on, I wrote about this in my notebook on Tuesday. You'll find that on the talkSPORT website. Marco Silva at Fulham. Now, I think it's difficult to get him out of Fulham mid-season, but his contract is up at the end of the season. I don't expect him to stay at Craven Cottage. I think he's been quite vocal about his unhappiness during most of the transfer windows that he's been in situ, and he does have a good relationship with Marinakis. He was the manager at Olympiacos when they won their 43rd league title. So I think if they do decide to change managers again, then he would be a genuine contender.
Okay, we'll look forward to that. Marco Silva, the best answer of a question in the Premier League. You ask him one question, he'll give you a 2.5-minute answer, and you can just sit back and enjoy the best post-match interview around. Nottingham Forest against Chelsea is live on talkSPORT 12:30 on Saturday when we return after the international break. Now, what about this? Arsenal considering a move to Wembley to expand the Emirates Stadium. Does it make you feel that old that the Emirates is now being considered quite dated?
Well, I don't think it's about it being dated. It's about trying to get more bums on seats. And I've got to say, over the last few years, obviously, my wife's an Arsenal fan, so's the father-in-law. Even when Aaron Ramsdale was playing for them in goal, he was struggling to get older tickets at times. There's a massive demand to go and watch this Arsenal team under Mikel Arteta. The place is full week in, week out, and they've seen what other clubs have done by expanding capacity, and they've obviously seen the commercial revenues that come with it. I'm not sure a lot of Arsenal fans would be in favour of moving to Wembley again. That didn't work for them at all last time, did it, when they were playing Champions League games there? And actually, I remember speaking to people like your co-commentator, Lee Dixon, him saying that was a big barrier for us in terms of Champions League progression because European teams enjoy coming to play at Wembley. They saw it as a night out, and maybe we would have been better off sticking at Highbury. But I can see the sense in Arsenal expanding, and they want to be, I think, the biggest ground in London again because they've been overtaken on that front by both West Ham and Tottenham.
Yeah, Manchester City have just invested in their stadium, and that's nearly finished now. They're taking their capacity up to the next level as well, ahead of the European Championships, which they will host in 2028. And it's great. And the reason they're doing it is because, okay, I know people will point fingers at Manchester City and say, you don't sell enough tickets to have a bigger stadium. But it means that they can host massive events. It means that they've ended up spending a lot of money on stuff around the stadium, like fan parks, hotels, restaurants, bars, all that kind of stuff, to sort of keep people in the complex for longer right throughout the day. And it's a revenue generating exercise. They've gone into partnership with a entertainment company, and they've built a box, the Co-op Live, next door to the Manchester City Stadium, which is part owned by Manchester City, and they have all the big acts there now. When you play a big gig in Manchester, you usually go to the Co-op Live. It's a massive arena, one of the biggest in Europe. So that all sort of multi-event, multi-purpose arena stroke stadium stuff really does increase the revenues. And obviously, with the PSR rules as they are and the UEFA rules as they are, you need to have as much revenue generation as possible. Bayern Munich, obviously very happy to have Harry Kane, still chirping on about Voltemada, but don't worry about that. Kane, though, has said he's going to stay. He doesn't really fancy coming back to the Premier League. And I don't blame him, because he is playing some of the best football in his career. He looks $1 million. 18 goals in 10 games, Scott.
Yeah, and look, people I think show a bit of lack of respect to the Bundesliga. We know it's not quite the Premier League, not in terms of physicality and strength in depth, but it's still a very, very good league. And you know, Sam, you saw the game, and I know Crookie did as well at Chelsea. I mean, how good was he? He was man of the match. He was a brilliant number 9. He was a brilliant number 10.
Off the scale.
He was a brilliant number 6. I'll tell you what, if we're really struggling, we might put him as a number 6. He's a very different player to Wayne Rooney, but he's similar in the sense that he's incredibly versatile. He's not just your number 9, your typical striker, you know, the one that tries to get into the box in the way that, say, a Gary Lineker, Michael Owen, Robbie Fowler did. Alan Shearer obviously was a superb number 9 as well, but even he was a number 9. Whereas Harry Kane, he can be a brilliant number 9 and a number 10. And do you know what? If this can elongate his career for another 2 or 3 years, because not every single game is bang on it, and he can still do the stuff for England. I do, going back to England actually with Ollie Watkins, I'm with Crookie. He's got to put in Ollie Watkins. If he doesn't, then Harry Kane's powers of making sure he's the number 1 by a million miles is greater than even I ever thought. But he is sensational. I've got nothing but total respect for him.
I am with you. It should be Ollie Watkins on Thursday night. I'm just saying the word obvious is not necessary, because I'm not sure that when it comes to Thomas Tuchel and Ollie Watkins, anything is obvious. I'm just saying that. That's all I wanted to get out there. Calm yourself down. On September the 26th, Harry Kane scored his 100th goal for Bayern Munich in his 104th appearance for the club, needing 1 game fewer to reach a century of goals than Cristiano Ronaldo at Real Madrid and Erling Haaland at Manchester City. I think that is an absolutely startling statistic. I think that shows the level that he is at. And I also think that it sort of amplifies the idea that we don't really revere him the way we revere the others, and we should, Crook.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe that's just part of the English psyche, that we feel more of a need to denigrate our sporting superstars than necessarily put them up on a pedestal. But I think Harry Kane will be one of those players that is only really truly revered when he hangs up his golden boots, because his record for club and country, wherever he's been, and he wasn't part of a brilliant Tottenham team, certainly not for the majority of his Spurs career. He just knows where the goal is. And those numbers that you've just read out are absolutely staggering. And speaking of Kevin Hatchard, who's obviously our big Bundesliga man, Bayern Munich fans absolutely love him. And they're a little bit surprised at the suggestion he would even entertain a move back to the Premier League. And again, I think that backs up Scott's point that we don't realise, or a lot of people don't realise, that Bayern Munich are a genuine global phenomenon in the same way that Liverpool and Manchester United and Real Madrid and Barcelona are. So why would he want to go back to Tottenham, Harry Kane, and leave all that behind? I think he'll probably see out his career in Germany now. And I think that actually will benefit England, because again, I'm not denigrating the league, but it isn't as physically demanding the Bundesliga week in, week out as the Premier League. And hopefully that means we're going to see a fitter, sharper Harry Kane at this World Cup than maybe we have at previous tournaments.
Fingers crossed on that. And also, they just sometimes they don't have as many cup competitions, obviously, as well, which sort of plays into the situation. And they usually win the title by about March anyway, so we can rest up towards the end of the season.